Good morning, everyone. Today, in this session, we are going to learn about Linux versus Windows and Linux file system. Today, we will learn about two very powerful and popular operating systems, Linux and Windows. And we will also study the Linux file system, which is an important part of how Linux organizes and manages the data. Operating systems are the most fundamental software in any computer system. Without an operating system, a computer cannot function properly because the operating system controls the interaction between hardware and software. In this session, we will focus on three major things. First, understanding Linux operating system. Second, understanding Windows operating system. And the third, learning how Linux organizes files and directories. Linux and Windows are used all over the world, but in different environments and for different purposes. For example, Windows is commonly used in personal computers and offices. Linux is widely used in servers, cloud systems, cybersecurity, and software development. Understanding the difference between these systems will help us to choose the right operating system depending upon our needs. In this slide, we will introduce the basic concept of operating system and the objectives of the session. Let us see what actually operating system is. An operating system is a system software that manages the computer hardware and software resources. It acts as an interface between the user and the hardware. Basically, operating system is software that manages computer hardware and software and acts as an interface between user and the hardware. Without an operating system, users would have to communicate directly with the hardware components, and it could be an extremely complex task. The operating system performs several important functions such as managing CPU processes, allocating memory, handling files and storage, controlling input-output devices, providing security and user access. In this session, we will mainly compare Linux and Windows, that are the two widely used operating systems. This session also focuses on file system, which are the methods used by operating systems to organize and store files on storage devices. And by the end of the session, we will understand the difference between Linux and Windows, where each operating system is commonly used, how Linux operating organizes and manages files, hopefully. Now moving forward, that what is Linux? Linux is an open source operating system, which means its source code is freely available for anyone to study, modify, and distribute. Linux was created in the year 1991 by Linus Torvalds, Finnish computer scientist student. Initially, Linux was a small personal project, but over time it grew into a powerful operating system used worldwide. From a small project to a powerful operating system that is used worldwide. Linux is based on the Unix operating system design, which is introduced by many important concepts such as multi-user system, multitasking, hierarchical file system. One of the biggest advantage of Linux is that it is highly customizable. Users and organizations can modify the system according to their needs. Linux is widely used in many areas such as servers, cloud computing, embedded system, and cybersecurity. In servers, most internet servers run on Linux because it is stable and secure. Cloud computing is the second area in which many cloud platforms such as AWS and Google Cloud runs on Linux only. Third area where Linux is used as embedded system. Devices like routers, smart TVs, and IoT devices often use Linux. And the last point, that is cybersecurity. It is an additional area where Linux is used. Security professionals use Linux-based systems such as Kali Linux because Linux is open source. It is also free to use, which makes it more attractive for organizations that want to reduce software cost. It is one of the most popular features in Linux as open source. We can easily cut down the software cost, and that is why it is highly used by the organizations. Now moving, I hope you all have understood what actually Linux is. Now moving forward to the Windows. Let us study what are Windows. I know you all are already familiar, but let's give it a quick review. Windows is a proprietary operating system developed by Microsoft. Unlike Linux, Windows is not an open source. This means its source code is owned by Microsoft and cannot be freely modified or distributed. Windows was first introduced in the year 1985 and it became very popular because for its user-friendly and graphical interface. One of the biggest advantage of Windows is its easy to use access. Users can interact with the system using icons, menus, windows, mouse-based navigation. Windows is widely used in personal computers, business environment, gaming. In personal computers, most desktop and laptop computers come with Windows already installed. We are having a desktop and laptop that already have Windows installed. We have not to install Windows in it. Now in business environment, many companies use Windows for office work and enterprise software. And in gaming field, Windows is one of the most popular platform for computer games because it supports many gaming applications and hardware. Another important advantage is software compatibility. It has high software and hardware compatibility because more commercial and the most commonly commercial applications include like Microsoft Office, Adobe software, many games that are designed primarily for Windows only. So it have high compatibility with strong hardware and software and is widely used in personal computers and by many organizations. Now, key differences between Linux and Windows. As we have studied what is Linux, what is Windows, now let us understand the key differences between Linux and Windows. In this slide, we will see the major differences between Linux and Windows. One of the biggest differences is open source versus proprietary. Linux is open source, meaning anyone can modify it and anyone can use it. Whereas Windows operating system is proprietary and controlled by Microsoft only. It is not freely available for everyone to use and modify. Now moving forward to the next difference, that is command line versus graphical interface. Linux users often use the command line interface, that is CLI, to perform tasks efficiently, and whereas Windows mainly focuses on graphical user interface, that is GUI. So Linux uses command line interface, that is CLI, and Windows uses graphical user interface, that is GUI. Security is another major difference. Linux is generally considered more secure because it has a strong permission system and fewer malware threats as compared to Windows, because Windows is more commonly targeted by malware because it is widely used. Another difference is cost, that is free distributions versus paid licenses. Linux distributions are usually free, while Windows required a paid license. I hope these differences make Linux and Windows suitable for different types of users and environment. Depending upon the different types of users and environment, Linux and Windows are used. Now moving forward to the performance and use cases. Performance and use cases include that Linux preferred for several servers and development, whereas Windows is popular for desktop and gaming. Linux consumes fewer resources, where Windows offers extensive commercial software support. Linux and Windows are used in different situations because they have different strengths. Linux is commonly used for servers and development environment. Servers need operating systems that are stable, secure, and capable of running continuously for long periods. Linux performs very well in these situations. Linux also consumes fewer system resources, which means it can run efficiently even on older or lesser powerful hardware, making Windows one of the more popular for desktop computing and gaming. Many commercial software applications are designed specifically for Windows only. For example, Microsoft Office, Adobe Photoshop, most programming games. Windows also provide strong support for hardware devices, making it easy for users to install printers, graphical cards, and other peripherals. Hence, Windows support hardware devices, making it easy for users. As we could additionally add features like printers and graphical cards. Now moving to the next slide, that is Introduction to Linux File System. The Linux file system organizes and stores data on storage devices. Linux uses a hierarchical directory structure, which means files are organized in a tree-like structure. At the top of this structure is the root directory, representing by the symbol hash. All the directories and files are located under this root directory only. One important concept in Linux is that everything is treated as a file. This means that not only regular files, but also devices and system resources are represented as files. For example, a printer may appear as a file, a disk drive may appear as a file, a device may appear as a file. These design simplifies system management. Hence, it supports efficient file organization and permissions. Now, next we have Linux directory structure. It includes the top level directory, user directory, essential commands, configuration files, logs, and variable data. All are written before that passage used. Linux uses several important directories to organize files. The root directory, that is hash, is the top level directory of the entire file system. All other directories exist under this root directory only. Now moving forward to the second directory, that is home directory. The home directory contains personal directories for users, where each user has a separate folder where its files are stored. So every user has separate folder where their files are stored. Now moving to the next directory, that is bin directory. The bin directory contains essential command programs used by the system. The bin directory contains essential command that are used by the system. The etc. The etc directory contains configuration files for the operating system. It is a directory where configuration files are there. The variable directory, the var directory. The var directory stores variable data such as logs and system messages, where variable data and logs are stored. All this directory structure helps to maintain, organize, and efficient file management system. That is why the data is organized and managed efficiently. Now next we have important of Linux directories. Some of the most important Linux directories are user programs and USR, lib, temp, dev, and boot. These are the important directories that stores different types of files. Each directories have a different task and perform differently. Like USR uses programs and utilities, where the user's program and utilities are there. The lib directory where it stores shared library that is used by the programs. The temp where temporary files are created. The def directory where each file is represented by hardware device. The bootloader file contains files that are required to start the operating system. Linux contains several important directories that store different types of files. The USR directory contains users, application, and utilities. The lib directory stored shared libraries that is used by the programs. Libraries contains common function used by many programs. The temp directory stores temporary files that are created by the application. These files are usually deleted automatically when the system restarts. As it stores temporary files, so these are the files that can be deleted automatically if the system restarts. The def directory contains device files that represent hardware devices. The boot directory is the directory that contains files that are required to start the operating system. These directories helps the operating system to function properly. By the help of these directories, operating system performs its function properly and in an efficient manner. Now moving forward to the Linux file system concept. The Linux file system concept uses inode-based structure, supports multiple file system that is extension 4, XFS, BTRFS. Mounting system connects the storage device, strong permissions, and ownership models. Now let us study these 4 points in brief. The Linux file system uses an inode-based structure. An inode is the data structure that stores information about a file. I hope now you all are familiar with the word inode. It is a type of data structure that stores information about a file. Now, what if it stores information about a file? What information should it include? It contains information such as file size, file permissions, owner information, location of the file, data on disk. Linux also support multiple file system, that is extension 4, XFS, BTRFS. Another important concept is mounting. Now, before understanding the concept of mounting, let us see what mounting is. Mounting connects a storage device to the file system so that the users can access them. It is a it acts as a connection between file system and the storage device so that users can easily access them. That is why mounting is done. Storage device and the file system, if we apply mounting, users can easily access them. Linux also uses a strong permission and ownership system, which improves the security. If there is a strong permission and ownership system, definitely the security would be enhanced. That is why Linux is more secure than other operating system because it has a strong permissions and ownership models. That is why it is more preferred for a small system that works on the small data only. Now moving forward to the next slide, that is file permission in Linux. Some of the file permission in Linux include read, write, execute permissions, owner, group, other permission levels are also included. chmod and chown commands are also incorporated. These file permission improve system security and access control. In Linux, file permissions are an important security feature. Each file has three types of permission: read, write, execute. The read permission, that is R, it allows user to view the file content. The write operation, that is W, it allows the user to modify the file. And execute allows the user to run the file as a program. So basically, if we want to view the file, we'll go with the read command. And if we want to modify the file, we'll go with the write command. And if we want to run the file, we'll go with the execute program. Now permissions are assigned to three types of users. The three types of users include owner, group, and others. The first one, that is owner, it is where the file actually owned. The group, if the file is given to a group, like for example, in office work, every employee have some or the file other file in the common. Other permission level, there are few files that are restricted that could not be used by everyone. If we have the permission, then only we could use it, like access required for some files. That is why permissions are assigned into three types of users. Depending upon the need, the users are categorized. Right. Now moving forward to Linux commands like chmod and chown. Chmod uses to change the file permission. Chown used to change the file ownership. If we want to change file permissions, we'll go with chmod. And if we want to change the file ownership, we'll go with chown. As in the previous point, we have discussed like the permission of the owner. If we want to change the file permission, we'll use chmod, that's modify. And next we have chown, that is owner, that we will use this command to change the file ownership. These permissions helps to protect the system from unauthorized access. All these permissions help us so that unauthorized access cannot be done on the system. And if these file permissions are not there, it is very easy for anyone to access the files that may be private and that could not be used by other. Like for example, the information of a company. If we don't have the file permissions, then it will have an unauthorized access. Some or the other will look on to the data that is very crucial for us. Now moving forward to the final site that includes Linux um, and Windows serve different purposes. Linux excels in flexibility and server environments, understanding file system, where the administration skills are improved, foundation for advanced Linux learning. In this session, we have learned about Linux, Windows, and Linux file system. We have seen that Linux and Windows are two powerful operating systems. Linux and Windows, they both are two different operating systems and these both are very powerful, but they have several different purposes and they serve differently. Linux is widely used for servers, cloud system, and development, while Windows is commonly used for personal computers and gaming. Linux is open source, meaning anyone can modify it, whereas Windows is proprietary and controlled by Microsoft. Linux uses command line interface, that is CLI, whereas Windows use graphical user interface, that is GUI. We see that Linux is considered more secure because it has a strong permission system and fewer malware threats. Since Windows is more commonly targeted by malware because it is used widely. Also, one of the most important key differences is that Linux are usually free, whereas Windows require a paid license. These differences help us to learn about this. These two different operating systems serve us differently in a different way. We have also studied Linux file system. The Linux file system that organizes file in a hierarchical structure starting from the root directory. The Linux file system organizes and stores data on storage devices. It uses hierarchical directory structure, which means files are organized in a tree-like structure. Like on the top, it is the root directory, and all other files and directories are located under that root directory only. One important concept in Linux is that everything is treated as a file. This means that not only regular files, but also devices and system resources are represented as files. Linux file system uses an inode-based structure, where A node is a data structure that stores information about the file. Understanding the Linux file system is important for anyone who wants to work on system administration, cybersecurity, cloud computing, or software development. Because it contains information such as file size, file permission, ownership information, and location of the data. It also supports mounting, where storage devices are connected to the file system so that users can easily access them. Linux also uses strong permission and ownership system which improves security. Understanding the Linux file system is important for everyone so that it could be used easily in the field of cybersecurity, cloud computing, and development. This knowledge forms the foundation for learning advanced Linux concept. Now concluding the slide, we saw that Linux and Windows are operating system and serve different purposes. And if we understand the Linux file system is important and it forms the basic foundation for advanced Linux learning. Thank you everyone. Hope to see you soon.